So this is my Stamina Necromancer non-CP PvP build. It's a medium armor bow build. This is a build I've been talking about for several weeks now. I have been having a ton of fun with it. So it's a medium armor bow build. It uses a bow on the front bar. We're using all ranged attacks. And then the back bar, we're using a two-hander just for buffs and heals and that kind of stuff. I think this is a moderately advanced build, mainly because we're using gear that's kind of hard to get a hold of. One of the 5-piece sets comes from a trial, another one of the 5-piece sets comes from a DLC dungeon, and we're using an arena weapon as well. So all around it's a bit of a grind to get a hold of this gear. But I will have an alternate gear selection in the description using gear that's a little bit easier to get a hold of and still gets pretty similar results and has a similar play style. Another reason I think it's kind of an advanced build is that it's very heavily reliant on light attack weaving. A major portion of our damage comes from light attack weaving, and so if that's not something that you're very consistent with, maybe something you're still kind of working on, this may not be the best build for you. But if your light attack weaving's down, it's just second nature to you, then the playstyle actually is really simple otherwise. So just keep that in mind. For the race, I'm a Wood Elf, mainly for the Hunter's Eye passive, which is perfect for a bow build where you get extra mobility after using Unroll Dodge. For my Moonstone, I'm using the Serpent for extra stamina recovery. I'm also using Dubious Cameron Throne for my food for even more stamina recovery. And for my potions, I'm just using standard tri-stat potions. Here's a look at the stats. I'll also put a link to the UESP build in the description, so if you want to take a closer look, you can do that there. Also remember, these stats are with no CP. I'm putting 21 points into health, which puts my max health at 23,000. The rest of the points are in stamina, which puts my max stamina at 24,000. Fully buffed, my stamina recovery is 2,500, and weapon damage is right at 3,000. Quick overview of the gear. I'm using 5 pieces Sheer Venom, 5 pieces Poisonous Serpent, the Black Rose Prison Bow, and the Potentate's two-handed weapon on the back part. All 7 pieces are medium. We basically have no choice. We can't really do a 5-1-1 or a 5-2 or anything like that because we're using 2 5-piece sets that only come in medium, and there's just no room for anything else. I'm using 3 M-Pen and 4 well-fitted. You could invert that. You could do 4 M-Pen, 3 well-fitted, whatever feels comfortable to you. I like running 4 well-fitted. I think mobility is especially important in this meta. I'm really not trying to tank out much damage at all, so having more critical resistance is less valuable to me than more ability to just stay mobile and stay out of harm's way. Especially with this is very much a speedy, roly-poly kind of build, so you're going to get a lot more out of well-fitted than you are out of M-Pen. Also, M-Pen was nerfed this patch and well-fitted was buffed this patch, so all the more incentive to use that. And then I'm using tri-stat glyphs all around on all the armor. You could totally just use stamina glyphs all around if you want. That would be just fine. You would just want to adjust your attribute points so that you still have enough health. You don't really have to worry about magicka too much. We don't really rely on magicka all that much. But it is nice to have, so if you can afford the tri-stats, go ahead and get the tri-stats. The jewelry, I'm using 1 robust and 2 swift, and then I'm using weapon damage glyphs on all 3 of those. So let's dive a little bit deeper into these armor sets, and we'll start with Sheer Venom. This is a very popular set this patch because it was massively buffed. It's very strong. It comes from Imperial City Dungeon. You can totally just farm it on normal if you want and just upgrade the pieces as you please. That's what I did. So it gives you max stamina and then 2 lines of weapon damage. And then when you deal damage with an execute ability, you deal an extra 9,660 with no CP over 6 seconds. That's poison damage. So as of Stonethorn, they buff this so that it will deal up to 100% additional damage on targets based on their missing health. So starting at 100% health, as soon as they start losing health, this proc will start dealing more and more damage as they lose health. And so what you do is you activate this with Poison Injection. We'll talk about our skill bars here in just a little bit, but one of the skills we're using is Poison Injection, which is an execute ability, and it's also a damage over time ability. So it's basically made for this set. You can tag somebody with Poison Injection, and since it's an execute ability, it immediately procs this set. And then since it's a damage over time ability, as soon as the Sheer Venom proc ends, the poison injection dot will tick again, and then it automatically refreshes sheer venom without you even having to think about it. And they're both executes, right? Sheer venom deals execute damage, and poison injection deals execute damage. And so as your target is losing health, both of these things are dealing more and more and more damage. So it's like they get kind of caught in this pit that they have a really difficult time climbing out of. Our other 5-piece set is Poisonous Serpent. This one comes from the Hillra Citadel 12-player trial. If you don't want to grind a trial, or if you're having a hard time finding a group to do trial with, a good alternative to this set is the Swamp Raider set, which is an overland set. You can just buy that at a guild trader. But I do think Poisonous Serpent is a little bit better if you can get a hold of it. So it gives you stamina, weapon damage, and then another line of stamina. And then what it does is, against enemies who have a poison ability on them, your light attacks and your heavy attacks deal an extra 4,300 poison damage, and that has a 2-second cooldown. So again, this set is activated by Poison Injection, the same ability that activates our other 5-piece set. Sheer Venom also activates this set. And then on top of all of that, we also have the Black Rose Prison Bow. So this one comes from the Black Rose Prison. Obviously, you can farm this on normal or vet. I just did it on normal. This weapon causes your magnum shot to apply a really strong poison dot. It deals 65% of your magnum shot's damage every 2 seconds as poison damage. And so this is very, very strong because it's a really strong dot tied to a really powerful stun. And on top of all the other dots and abilities that we're throwing at them, you know, by the time they break the CC and stand up to retaliate, it's often already too late. They've already taken too much damage, and they have all these execute multipliers, and they just can't recover. Something else that I think is important to focus on is the fact that this Black Rose Prison Bow is infused, and it has a poison glyph on it. So on an infused weapon, this poison damage glyph deals 3,600 damage. And if we compare that to our Poisonous Serpent 5-piece set, that deals 4,300 damage, so not much less than our 5-piece set. And on an infused weapon, these glyphs have a 2-second cooldown, just like our Poisonous Serpent set. And the thing is, our Poisonous Serpent set, that's a proc set. Proc sets cannot crit, but glyphs can crit. So this actually overall deals more damage than our entire Poisonous Serpent 5-piece set, just with this one little glyph. And on the back bar, we're using a Potentate's 2-hander. The weapon type, it doesn't matter at all. It can be a maul or a sword or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just a defensive bar. We have no offense on this bar. Potentates, the 2-piece bonus gives us an extra 3% damage mitigation, which isn't a lot, but it stacks with other damage mitigation that we have in this build that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So altogether, it does add up to quite a bit. So speaking of which, let's get into the skills. We'll talk about the skill bars here. So on the front bar, for our main spammable, we're using Venom Skull. This is a ranged spammable, and it deals poison damage, so it fits our theme of dealing all poison damage, and it's pretty bursty. It gives an extra 20% damage every third cast. And with this morph, Blast Bones counts towards that third cast, so we're actually getting that extra 20% damage quite a bit of the time. Of course, we have Poison Injection, by far the most important skill in this entire build, mainly because it activates both of our 5-piece armor sets, and it's an execute ability. So whenever we're using our spammable, when our targets have a normal amount of health, and then when they get down around like 30% health or so, I switch to Poison Injection as my spammable instead. We're also using Magnum Shot. This is another very important ability. This is our main stun ability. And since we're using the Black Rose Prison Bow, it also causes that ability to deal a ton of poison damage as well. So definitely a very important part of our combo, and we'll go over that combo here in just a little bit. And of course we have Blast Bones. This is our main burst attack. The tooltip on this ability isn't very huge because we're not really spec'd into weapon damage, but we're really not worried about the amount of damage this deals. The main reason we're using it, of course, is the guaranteed permanent major defile and potentially minor defile, right? Because it deals disease damage. So we're potentially giving our enemies a 45% healing reduction and a guaranteed 30%. I'm also using Shuffle, and mainly using this for snare removal, just so I can stay mobile. This isn't really a buff that I try to keep up at all times. I just kind of use it as needed, because I think if I try to keep this up at all times, it's just a little bit too much to juggle for the build to feel comfortable. So I just cast this if I'm rooted or if I'm being snared or something like that. Otherwise, I just kind of let it hang out. And then for my main offensive ultimate, I'm using the Bow Ultimate Ballista. This is one of the few ults that makes sense on any kind of ranged stamina build. It's kind of one of the few options that you have. I did try the Colossus, but honestly, I get way more kills with this ability. People see the Colossus coming from a mile away if they've done PvP for 20 minutes, you know, so I feel like I hardly ever get kills with the Colossus. But if I can cast Ballista on someone, then CC them with Magnum Shot, and they can take at least a couple of hits from this Ballista, it's going to be a lights out guaranteed, especially with all the other stuff we've been talking about, all the other damage, the execute multipliers, the defiles, all of that. You're going to get way more kills out of Ballista. On the back bar, I'm using the Spirit Guardian. There are lots of good reasons to use this ability. It's a fairly strong heal over time, even on a stamina build. It absorbs 10% of our damage, right? And that's on top of the Potentate's sword that we're using. It also serves as a body block, so it can absorb 100% of your damage potentially. And it activates our Undead Confederate passive for an extra 200 stamina and magic recovery. So really great ability. Mortal Coil, this ability is free to cast. This ability is really the magic ingredient that makes our sustain pretty much feel endless. Always keep an eye out for bodies on the ground, and of course some of our abilities are generating corpses as well. Anytime you see that little glowing greenish blue light, be sure and cast your Mortal Coil to get that going. The heal over time is really strong. It really adds a lot to your survivability, but really that stamina return, you're going to notice a huge difference when this is running versus when it's not running. The heal over time can also apply to your allies. If they're standing inside of that beam, then they get that heal as well, so you can provide a little bit of support that way. And you get a 3% extra healing done while slotted, and that's on top of the 9% that we're getting from the powered trait on our two-hander, right? So we're getting 12% total bonus healing on our back bar. Summoner's Armor, this is just a major armor buff, nothing exciting, but very important, you gotta have it. Rally is where we get our major damage buff. It's also a big burst heal whenever it expires or whenever you recast it, so make sure you're keeping this active at all times. And then Vigor, this is our main burst, and it's like a hybrid burst and heal over time. So in emergency, what I do is I cast Vigor, then cast Rally to get that big burst heal on top of the Vigor heal over time. Also, try to use Vigor preemptively. If you see an ult dump coming or you're anticipating a lot of damage coming your way, cast Vigor ahead of time so that you can stay healed through that rather than trying to heal up after taking the damage. And then for our defensive ultimate, we're using Temporal Guard from the Psijic Order. The main reason I'm using this is so that we have that minor protection on the back bar for extra 8% damage mitigation. That's on top of the 10% mitigation we get from our Mender and the 3% we get from Potentates. So total, that's a 21% damage mitigation on our back bar. And the active component to this is a really good ability as well. It's a very cheap cost for a defensive ultimate, which is really nice because it'll be up when you need it a lot of the time. And when you learn how to use it right, you can really juke people, and it's really satisfying to pull it off. So for the offensive strategy, it's pretty simple really. So first of all, you need to, like I said earlier, you need to make sure that you're always light attack weaving. Very important. You're going to be missing out on a ton of damage if you're not light attack weaving. And then first thing, hit your enemy with Poison Injection. And I don't really even think of this as part of the combo. I think of Poison Injection as like a debuff that I hit my enemy with before I start my combo. So hit them with Poison Injection, then summon Blast Bones, CC them with Magnum Shot, and then spam Venom Skull until Blast Bones lands. And then just start over with Blast Bones and do the exact same thing. Blast Bones, Magnum Shot, spam Venom Skull until Blast Bones lands. And then just reapply Poison Injection whenever that falls off, and that's basically it. I do Magnum Shot every single time, even though your enemy is going to be on CC immunity basically every other rotation. But since we're using the Black Rose Prison bow, and it can potentially, depending on the distance you are from your enemy, that can potentially only be a 4-second duration. So just just to make sure I have the maximum uptime on the Black Rose Prism Bow, and just to simplify the rotation so I don't really have to think about it. It's just the same thing every time. I just do it every single time. Blast Bones, Magnum Shot, Venom Skull, in that order every time. It works really well. And I think that's the end of my Stamina Necromancer non-CP PvP bow build. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can email me at ketsparrowhawk@gmail.com, or you can just leave a comment on the video. Until next time, good luck out there.